GWP, via UN Water, does signal service by conducting surveys around the world about the countries that are getting busy and making progress in having water policies that pull together all of the uses of water and aren't just about one water sector. And you can see as you move across the dial, you've got the number that were some 2003, 2005, 2008, 2012. So we're now in the purple chart, and you can see that the progress has been really quite steady in terms of countries that are in some stages or in an advanced stage of putting together water policies. So as I say, more attention at the policy level. And that's important because that's where you insert the things that you need to do once you've got a water policy. So never belittle getting a water policy in place, then you can change it. Although in Canada we seem to have one which we're never going to change. But anyway, in theory you can change it, and it's much easier than starting de novo. So progress is more likely for developed countries than for developing countries. Again, GWP found this out. You can see the higher the HDI index, in other words, the higher the level of development, the more likely it is that there has been some progress made in this area. And again, congratulations to GWP for tracking the number of countries in the world that actually are doing something in this area. We'll still be managing water very badly. I can confidently predict that 20 years out. The push for development is such that it's going to keep winning against the need not to pollute, although I'm going to be talking a little bit later about how to get rid of some of that pollution. We'll still be undercharging. People are still more willing to pay for water than governments are to ask them to pay enough for water. Over and over again, you find out that people would pay more for water, whether we're talking about agricultural water, whether we're talking about drinking water. Industrial water, people are paying for water, but not everywhere in the world, and they're not having pollution regulations in. There'll still be degrading municipal systems. This is a problem not just in both the industrialized world and in the global south. OECD has pointed out that the cost of reaching the MDG to provide drinking water is only 1/3 of what it costs to maintain the infrastructure. That infrastructure to actually keep that happening year after year after year. So the world reaches, or thinks it reaches, the MDG on drinking water. It didn't actually, because it was only available water, not really safe water. But even still, to maintain that year over year over year costs 3 times as much as actually reaching it. And that's a bill which nobody has yet faced up to the need for. We only started to have delivered water a century and a bit ago, well, 2 centuries ago. But we haven't gotten used to the idea yet that this is something that we need to keep restoring and restoring and replenishing. Just like your housing stock, just like your transportation stock. We don't expect that a freeway is going to work forever, but we expect that pipes and infrastructure in the ground are going to work forever. We've got to get people accustomed to the idea that it's really just like highways. It's just like other, you've got to change your telecommunication systems, you've got to change roads, all the rest of it. You need to change. Okay. And we will have over-abstraction and problem in the deltas. And we will have fragmented accountability. In many countries, you've got about 17 or 18 countries that are ministries that can pass regulation. It will probably still have the fragmentation. But at least more players are worried. Since I stole their slides, I went back to the USA Intelligence Community Assessment, and I liked this sentence. Between now and 2040, freshwater availability will not keep up with demand. Water problems will hinder the ability of key countries to produce food and generate energy, posing a risk to global food markets and hobbling economic growth. As a result of this, major challenges coping with water problems. It will risk instability and state failure and regional tensions. So more and more, this is coming up on the map. I chose that one because it was a nice stark way of saying, this isn't just about water, folks. This is going to get in the way of a lot of progress and a lot of activity on other areas. So clearly this is a problem with local and global impact. Does this mean the impetus for global solutions is growing? No. The picture from Rio +20 is not encouraging. Somebody called it the world's largest suicide note, the Rio Declaration. They were plagiarizing, but it does make the point. that you would think that with what we've got facing us, that the nations of the world would be able to come together and say something very meaningful about their intentions. They didn't. It did reaffirm in terms of the particular interests of GWP, it reaffirmed the Johannesburg Program of Actions. We want that with a desire to significantly improve the implementation of integrated water resource management at all levels. Useful to have that in there as an umbrella. But I think as Marilyn said at the end of the last session, Marilyn, is Marilyn here? I'm going to quote you a lot, so it really is the end of an era. And that is, I think, the end of looking to mega conferences and mega resolutions as the thing that's going to trigger on-the-ground action. They're still essential to set the policy umbrella. You absolutely need them there to set a policy umbrella, but they're not that successful in actually fomenting action, in changing budgets, in making ministers and making cabinets act around the world. We've got to stop acting like they are. BRICS, the coming powers in all of this, someday we're actually going to move the Security Council and have a different power structure. Are the BRICS really big multilateralists? Are they likely to be articulating and searching for policy agreements via the multilateral system? They don't act like it yet. It could happen, but I don't think so. So I think it is the end of an era when we tried to set these things at the global level and had some confidence that just working on them at that level was really going to have an estimable impact on that which happened on the ground in cities, on river basins, etc. So Rio is a bit like Copenhagen, a bit of a fizzle, but that doesn't mean you stop working on the issues. Copenhagen was followed by Durban and Cancun. They both talked about the need for local focus and talked about the need to set another global umbrella, but a while from now, well, when the wounds are healed. But most of all, they offer a big opportunity for GWP. Why? GWP knows a lot, as Helen said, Marilyn said. It knows local policy, knows local players, knows and documents best practices. It's got the toolbox. It's followed that up with other instruments. There's a lot in there that is exactly what the world is going to need as we switch resolutely to looking at action at local level, and it knows partnership potentials. GWP is looking in the right areas. Here's 6 of the areas that it's looking seriously about putting into a strategy: climate change, urban water management, food security, water and energy, water financing, groundwater management. These are the major issues that we're really going to need action on. I want to go inside 2 of these issue areas, water and food and energy, the so-called nexus, to do some exploration there, because I think that there's some lessons to be learned here. They don't contain all of the IWRM elements as seen by GWP, Integrated Water Resource Management elements as seen by GWP, but it is a step towards integrated water resource management, and you can't get to progress on the nexus without collaboration across sectors. And in some senses, that collaboration has gone quicker on the ground and resulting in actual tangible measures than the overall IWRM blanket, which is a more ambitious attempt, has yet been able to do, i.e. to move on from the level of planning. Indeed, the nexus really doesn't start at the level of planning, it starts at the level of can we do something to solve this problem. There's also some planning and analysis in there. So I want to go inside 2 of these areas because, as I say, to my mind, they're an integral part of what IWRM is. They don't cover exactly the same. If you had 2 blankets on a bed and one was round and one was square, they wouldn't cover the same areas, but they're certainly going in the same direction and very much for the same purpose. Okay, so let's start with food, and I want to put this in the sense of being a very local issue, because countries are increasingly having to ask themselves whether or not they have the water for food, the water for energy, the water for human settlements. And many of you have seen this little green triangle a lot before. Food, energy, and water, it's convenient to simply say, to put them in a triangle, because why? Because you can say, look, if you pull on one end, it's going to cause compression on the other ends. If you pull on the energy end in a water-short country, it's going to cause disruptions and difficulties in the agricultural end, and vice versa. So, I mean, whether you're in Tajikistan, whether you are in Tanzania, whether you're in Pakistan, you certainly know that this is the case. Food and energy are linked through biofuels, through fertilizers. The Green Revolution taught us about the value of fertilizers, through the fact that agriculture can sequester carbon, and through the food supply chain, and trade leads to carbon miles. Food and water are linked. Agriculture, as our little droplets showed earlier, consume more than 70%, in some cases 90% of water. Embedded water in food now leads to water footprints, and trade in agriculture is virtual trade in water. And energy and water, well, large volumes of water are required to abstract energy. And we have rising food concerns. It takes a liter of water to produce every calorie on average. This is a good news story. I've used this chart for years, so anybody who knows me has seen this chart lots of times. But it's a good news story. It shows that across the world, people have more calories per day, and that means they're using more liters of water per day. As you add, we'll move from 6 billion to 9 billion, and if you increase the number of calories that are eaten per day, you're greatly increasing the number of liters that are needed to feed that person. And as the world gets richer, that purple line in the middle, which is the most interesting line, gets bigger and bigger and bigger. What's the purple line? It's not the cereal we eat, it's the food and the fodder and the feed that animals eat. So our protein needs go up, our needs for feed and fodder go up, and it's highly water intensive. And so therefore, that will also increase our need for water. We all know that it takes something like 12 times as much water to create a kilo of beef as it does to create a kilo of rice. We can make personal decisions about how much our own diet is going to reflect that, but as long as the world wants more and more protein, it's a tough one to change.